Welcome. I'm AJ, and this is on Magic and Folklore. This is our first episode. I'm talking mostly on geographic areas and spirit of place this time. We're starting with Appalachia because it is close to myself. I'm from Nova Scotia, the tail end before it goes into the Atlantic and over to the UK and Africa and Caledonia near Finland and Greenland. It is one of the broadest subjects that we will be tackling, um, and I'll do my best to represent every location as best as I can. It's going to be difficult. So, when you're thinking of spirit of place or magic of place, the land takes precedence over everything. The land has memory of what it's experienced, whether we put that experience into it or the other creatures that live upon it put that experience into it, or it has its own spirit as well. It very subjective. It's hard to say with any certainty any of this. So you can take my word for what I feel and how I deal with it. My experience with spirit of place is dealing how with how I feel in the location that I'm working in. And when you create spaces for working in as well, it's necessary to keep that in mind that a place will have its own spirit, its own energy. And if you don't make some effort to respect that, it could mess up everything that you're doing in the area. So when you go into a new place, see how it feels to you. If it feels good and welcoming, make an offering to it. A little bit of uh, water. Water's the easiest one to come up with because if you're going out hiking, you find this beautiful place and you want to do a ritual, you have water there for drinking for yourself, share it with the location. If you have a little bit of food, share it with the natural surroundings within reason. You don't want to poison some poor animal with what humans eat, even though most animals can eat what we do. Be careful. Um, the spirit of place, when you're speaking of the Appalachia area, the whole range, it's 1.3 billion years old. Take a moment and think of that. 1.3 billion years. That range has been forming, maturing, and then receding. So it's experienced many things over that time, and likely it has its own spirit to the point that it's able to communicate with you in even overt ways sometimes. A lot of people have had experiences with nature spirits and creatures in the woods in the Appalachian area, and they were either scared out of their minds, had a good interaction, or it was a standoff of I see you, you see me, I'll keep my distance, you keep your distance, we're okay. That happens. but you have to respect it when you see it. Respect nature for what it is. And in Appalachia, nature, it takes on a whole lot of aspects. You can go into a place and it'll feel very peaceful. Go into another place and you feel you shouldn't be there. Something doesn't want you there, or it just doesn't feel right. Respect that feeling. And when you have to, confront that feeling. Figure it out. In some cases, you just no. Walk away. Best walk away from that. But if you go into a place and it feels right, sit and commune with it. And over time, you'll develop a relationship with it and it will start to speak to you. And what I mean by speaking isn't like you and I right now. A lot of people don't get that. Place will speak to you with feelings and images, smells, tastes. And it's sometimes the experience of its communication is so alien to you that you don't know how to take it. And it can be frightening. So you have to kind of take it as things go. If something starts communicating with you and becomes too intense, put up your barriers, put up your shields, and say, okay, this is too intense. Please dial it down a bit. Usually it'll go, oh, okay, and respect that. Sometimes it's trying to communicate with you because it knows you have heard it and it can be forceful. And that's when you put up your protections. And then you work with it little at a time, and over time it learns how to communicate with you in a way that doesn't harm you. A lot of ancient entities, like in Appalachia, the Appalachia range is primordial. Its moral compass is not your moral compass. It's not what you would expect. So you have to just step back, listen, learn from it, protect yourself when you need to, and respect it and yourself with limiting the time that you spend there as well. Don't stay there for days on end when you're feeling very intense pressure of what's going on. Don't do that to yourself. It doesn't help you and it doesn't help it. Be in there a couple hours. That's good enough to get in, get relaxed, deal with meditating in that area and absorbing what you hear and sense and smell and feel. And that'll give you an idea of what the spirit of the place is. And then you'll start to see the aspects of that place. The animals that live there, they'll get curious about you. They'll come and look at you. I've had deer walk up to me and sniff me when I was meditating. It freaked me out, but it happens. And you just take your time. And then when things are right, you start getting information. That's one way of doing it. Another way is looking at the history of the places. With Appalachia, you have from the Midwest of the US down to the southern part of the US. And all of the cultures throughout that area differ from each other. People in Kentucky are different than people in Alabama. People in Georgia are different than people in Ohio, New York as well. And then you get into New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. That's all part of the Appalachian Range. And all of those have different cultures, different histories. So look at those histories, gather information on it. Start with your own area. That's perfect. Because when you're looking at the history of your own place, you start realizing so much more has happened where you live than you knew about. And the more you learn, the better you're able to interact with your land, with your home. Um, when you go further than that, say to Africa, you get into Morocco and the Sahara Desert. That portion is very ancient. 10,000 years ago, there was a civilization in Morocco. They had their own magical practitioners, their own way of doing things, their own way of looking at everything. And then you have the effects of the Arabic world that came into that region. But Morocco is on the coast with a huge desert between it and Egypt. So you have a difference in that geographic area because of its isolation. And because of its isolation, the Arabic influence is so much more different than you'd find in Egypt. And so there's a lot of richness just in that and how they interacted and how the Moroccan people kept their heritage while being Muslim, which it's a great interaction. And then you have influences from Judaic people who moved into the region. And so you have Kabbalah that's in Moroccan language that was developed in Morocco by the Moroccan people, and it has influences of Islam, Judaism, Morocco, all intermixed. And to date, there isn't any translations of that in English, so the English speaking world can't really get easily into that. But if you're lucky, you can find someone who knows how to speak Arabic and Moroccan and can start helping you figure this out. If you get a chance to do it and you're able to translate some of the books, please let me know. Very exciting. And then from Africa, we go up into UK, the UK, and it's Ireland, Wales, parts of northern Wales, Scotland, and then you get into the Isle of Man, and then you go further up into Scandinavia with Finland and Greenland. All of these, they have very similar spiritual practices because the Celtic, uh, the broadness of the Celtic peoples and Norse people all intermixing in this area. So you have Norse mythologies, You have Breton mythologies, you have Irish mythologies, you have Scottish mythologies. And Scottish mythologies actually have representative to Egypt. They have Egyptian heritage. And so, right there, very rich lands, very rich histories, a lot to discover, a lot to rediscover, some of it unwritten, some of it lost due to Roman incursion. When you're dealing with lands and how you interact with the land and the spirit of the land, be respectful, learn your history, and meditate in the areas of the land that you have access to. Those three will help you build a relationship with the land and the spirit in the land, giving you a broader aspect of your magical practices. I'm not saying if you're atheist, you don't have to believe in gods, but you are going to deal with entities and energies that others would call that. You don't have to deal with them as something reverent. You can deal with them on level with yourself. You're a being, they're a being. Start from that. I exist, you exist. Let's have a rapport. Work from there and then see where you can get from that.